Well, before we begin our second episode, as is tradition, we must take attendance. So once I call your name, please answer as such. Nicholas, here. Ing?
Present.
Betteridge?
Here.
Austin? Austin? Austin?
Expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
Yeah, he's not here yet. We'll get on his case, actually, in a couple minutes when he arrives after watching the Raptors game, but until then, we are starting, well, from our standpoint, a little early. Good evening from Anime North for night number 2. We are in our usual perch here inside the Delta Hotel's Halton room. And this is episode 11 of Anime Roundtable version 2.0. Mike Nicholas, Kevin Ing are here to start initially, and we have a special guest, our second guest actually, after having Fred Schodt do an interview earlier today. From Zannen, Canada, formerly the blog and now the podcast, I'm actually tickled to have Jesse Betteridge here from Vancouver to enjoy Anime North and to do he did some panels earlier, but it's great to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm very happy to be the tickler in this situation. I used to run the Zannen Canada blog, which was very much an opinion blog regarding anime in Canada, anime like on TV and stuff. The blog is no longer. I mean, you can find it on archive.org if you really want, but yeah, it's not coming back, but it is back in podcast form. And unfortunately, I can't stay too long today, and that kind of throws a wrench in my own plan, which was to hijack this show later on and turn it into an episode of my own podcast so that I wouldn't have to record something when I got home. But yeah, whatever. I can't. This is what I get for waiting too long to get a hotel and having to get an Airbnb.
Hope you're feeling better. I know you're a bit under because you told us what happened.
I had a headache and I ate too much.
Well, as I said, falling ill seems to have has become a bit of a tradition here at Anime North, because Kevin fell ill during one episode last year, and then James fell ill during an episode last year. At least it wasn't in the same episode.
That was a terrible fever, and I had to work the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sick. I'm just getting old and ate too much.
I think you're still more than a few years behind me, young man.
Also, I didn't have any coffee today, and somehow still did 2 panels.
Congratulations!
Actually, I don't know how I did that.
We'll talk. Well, I wouldn't mind talking about him. I know your time is limited. Right now, but which parts of this do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about your impressions of Anime North, or?
So I've wanted to come to Anime North for a long time, but it is so fucking expensive to fly within Canada that, flying from Vancouver to Toronto just was not worth it, because I am from Vancouver. But since this was the 15th anniversary of Bionics, I figured it would be a great excuse to do a panel on that here, and just, because I figured if that panel's going to work anywhere, it's probably going to be at Anime North. Which has the largest, is the biggest anime con in Canada, and in some cases it has been the largest anime con in North America that's not Anime Expo, at least.
Depending on which metrics you want to use.
Depending on which metrics, because there's all sorts of crazy ways you measure this stuff. But yeah, that has been the case a few times in the past. But I reached out to Dave Merrill, because I understand that here at Anime North, they don't do panels like literally every other anime convention does. The way it normally works is that when you're submitting a panel, they actually have like a list of topics of panels that they want to do.
Partly, yes.
Partly. And then if you submit a panel, they will put someone else on your panel who wants to talk on that subject, whether you like it or not.
Interesting.
Which is...
Interestingly enough, that's how I ended up on the podcast panel today.
Yeah. So like what, like... Yes, sure. Like it's 1978, I guess. But yeah, Dave Merrill told me that if I speak with the programming department directly,
which is Norm and Eileen. And
Norm and Eileen.
And Norm's been on this show every year. We've done Anime North, and we're expecting him to do a segment later. Actually,
great. That's fantastic. But yeah. So yeah, I did. I submitted the Bionics panel. I also did a couple of the other panels that I've done at other cons in the past, like usually SoccerCon and Anime Revolution in Vancouver. I also did last night. I did Amazing Anime Deaths, which is
I heard one of Daryl Surratt's.
Yeah, you were talking about this at the last episode. I know. Yeah, I didn't rip it off from Daryl Surratt, but similar idea that just kind of came up, and obviously there's a lot of overlap on it. And honestly, mine is nowhere near as good as his is.
Yeah, we know.
I'm not even
that.
In fact, I was gonna tell people at the beginning, if you've seen Daryl's, don't even waste your time with mine, or at least set your expectations much lower. And but I didn't, because there was a little bit of a mix-up because. I arranged this entirely with Norm over email, and I originally submitted it as 18+, and he said, "Wait, why does this have to be 18+?" And I'm like, "Well, it has incredibly graphic violence and nudity and lots of F-bombs." And he's like, "Oh, that's fine." And I thought he meant it was like, as long as it's 18+, it's fine. What he meant is that they don't need to even check ID or do anything to restrict access, which is weird to me because at most anime conventions, if you even say the word fuck, you're automatically 18+, which is incredibly stupid.
So in that sense here,
but yeah, I found out that, and there was a little bit of confusion as we were starting it, because like the guidebook actually did list my panel as 18+,
and I did sit and watch myself. So.
Yeah, I guess that was a bit of a public back and forth, but I didn't realize that that the panel as I pitched it didn't have to be 18+, and that's surprising because my panel had the breast milk decapitation scene from Hindenburg Gauss.
Oh my god!
And
yes,
and I directly pitched it to Norm. He's like, "That's hilarious. It's fine. You don't have to make it 18+." You
kind of brought back some bad memories by showing Apocalypse Zero.
How could I not? Come on.
Thanks a lot.
For the record, I do hate that, but you have to put it in there.
Yeah, I hate it. Oh, I mean, we showed it at our club back in the day too. Oh my god.
Good for you.
Never had the pleasure of watching that show.
God.
Or displeasure.
Oh my god.
I haven't seen the whole thing, honestly.
I would just hear about it.
I will say, and there's no way Surratt's listening to the game to this, but I will say I enjoyed it, so I think he did a good job.
Okay.
But having not ever seen the way Daryl does the same concept, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm really lazy with the way I do it.
The constant gag between Dave Merrill and I, we Merrill constantly tells me, tag team, let's try and constantly keep asking Daryl to come up for Anime North. And so far he hasn't bitten. So
yeah, I have not met Daryl before.
I haven't either. I mean, we just talked online quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
I've seen Anime Hell. Not Anime Hell. I'm really tired. I've seen Anime's Craziest Deaths back in it's a few Otakons ago. It's a good show. Like he fills that huge that huge hallway that they have for it. Like there's got to be 800 to 1,000 seats in that room, and he fills it up.
Yeah. So yeah, I did that panel. Great turnout, of course. Everyone really liked it. It got good energy going, and it was a good opportunity to try and blatantly pitch my podcast to people, which I don't think really works, but I do it anyway. And today I did the Bionics 50th anniversary panel.
Yes.
I really wanted to go to that.
Yeah. Well, Kevin was busy.
Yeah. Unfortunately. It didn't. No, it went really well. I managed to squeeze it into. Actually, I went a couple minutes over, and then the guy organizing the panel after mine, which was for Fred Schodt, he's just like, "Oh, they should have kicked you out like 5 minutes ago." And then I'm just like, "I apologize to Fred," and he's like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry."
Fred's an easygoing guy, as you can tell. As you can tell. I enjoyed the Bionics panel. What little I was able to see, and you played some interesting thoughts. Almost.
Yeah, the thing about Bionics is that there's not a lot of. Are you able to pick up that sound that we're hearing in the background?
Oh, we won.
Yeah, just so you know,
we won.
We are taping this now, and we are taping this as the. Don't worry about it.
They're talking about sports, so I'm going to just.
The Toronto Raptors have beaten the Milwaukee Bucks 100-90, I think 94, so they have advanced to the NBA Finals. And I don't know if anybody, the microphones have picked it up. Fans here, the anime fans here are also, I guess, are acting like sports fans as well. And that's also the reason why James is late. So we'll
and we can now lose in the finals
to Golden State.
Yes.
Anyway, let's
peace.
Back.
Yes, no more sports. Let's stop it.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of material to work with for that panel, so I had to dig up a lot of stuff on archive.org. Contextualizing Bionics is also important. So there's a lot of stuff about Toonami, comparing it to Toonami, other branding on YTV. A lot of great stuff has surfaced online lately. There's one really great YouTube channel called Microphone, like Miker phone, that has a lot of really good retro vintage footage, a lot of it from YTV and other Chorus networks. And also there's, of course, Retro Ontario, where someone uploaded all of the Limbo
oh my god
station IDs.
God.
Limbo was YTV's first attempt at a 12 to 17 block in the fall of 2000. It was terrible. It's a complete mess.
Wow, this tells you how much.
I remember watching this show called Opposite Sex on Limbo, and
featuring Allison Mack.
Yes, a young Allison Mack. Yes.
Yep. Wow. So
her she became the pride and joy of certain sectors in Vancouver. Let me tell you. And so a lot of it was just contextualizing Bionics, and also I dug up stuff on archive.org, like old schedules, and I restored them. Which was an enormous amount of work because I don't know how to use Photoshop. I'm not a graphic designer, so I had to use really janky workaround methods to make it look the way I wanted to. And I not only restored all the original schedules from Bionics, I made 10 years of theoretical schedules for if Bionics had kept going, which proved to be controversial, apparently. But
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. And one person came up and said that this was it was the best panel they had ever seen at Anime North, which, that is flattering, but obviously they hadn't watched very many panels because, have you gone to a single Anime Hell? Seriously.
Well, maybe they're a Bionics kid like I was.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible, too. That's entirely possible.
I was raised on that stuff. It's what made me an anime fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am... the Bionics panel, I don't know if you have any listeners in Vancouver. I am planning to do it again in at Anime Revolution this year.
Okay.
And I'm not going to any other cons. I might try to see if I can get some other people to do it at other cons as well. But, if that happens, they'll be free to make changes and stuff to the panel. But
cool.
Yeah.
See, go ahead.
Maybe I'll try to put some of the stuff online after because with the amount of work I put into it, I can't just restrict it to just panels that only a few people are going to see. I saw some people recording my panel too, so maybe it's going to surface online somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah, check YouTube. How much do you want to talk about your name panel right now? Like just for the
I'll go into it right now. It's fine
because I missed the first 20 minutes because of the Fred Schodt interview.
We
did, which people will hear in a few days.
But, so
I found it entertaining.
I did another panel called Your Name, starring Keanu Reeves. I'll say right now it's about the lake house, which I think a lot of people will realize. Mike figured that out right away. But
this was my first reaction when I saw Your Name. When I thought about it, I just thought. It feels like Freaky Friday meets Lake House.
Yeah,
and I know I wouldn't be the only person to have thought it. And you made an entire panel about
it. And other people have made this joke before. but I was the one who decided to make a whole panel about it, and it has gone over very well in the few times I've done it. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do this panel for, because
Two things.
for two reasons. One, Makoto Shinkai's new movie is coming out this year, and then next year in North America. So, I mean, your name is gonna kind of seem like old hat pretty soon.
And of course, whatever the live action version.
And the live action
needless to
Mark
say.
Webb movie. It's going to be a little weird doing the panel after that. And I mean, also, at SakuraCon there is there's a panelist called Lady Librarian, and she's been doing panels about Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and Howl's Moving Castle for about well over 13, 14 years now. And I don't want to have my topics fall into that trap where I don't do anything new and just keep talking about the same stuff over and over again. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. If I ever go to Otakon or anything, I'll see if I can do it there. But basically, it's in terms of you mentioned it's like how Your Name is like the Lake House meets Freaky Friday. The idea I presented on the panel is that by applying the aspect of Freaky Friday to the Lake House, you fix the movie because it fills in a lot of the parts of that movie that don't work.
But then you showed Ilmari, the Korean movie.
Yeah, that's something I reveal later, that the Lake House is a remake of Ilmari.
And anybody who keeps up knows this already. So
yeah, and that is a good movie. The Lake House is not a good movie. The reason that it's not the reason that the panel is not a comparison between Your Name and Ilmari is because it's so much more fun to make fun of the Lake House. Because I tell you, a lot of that movie's boring and stupid, but there are some peak Keanu moments in that film,
true.
and they are glorious.
It's true. I will say that, okay, two things I want to say. One, I've seen Ilmari, but strangely enough, the DVD I got, which now makes me think it was a bootleg, and it's long lost for me.
Oh, okay.
Because I have no clue what happened. No clue. Maybe I lent it and I never got it back. I don't know. But the version I had was strangely dubbed only in Cantonese.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I do want to see a Korean language for Korean.
I believe there is a Blu-ray out for that movie.
And I would look for it.
I think it's I don't think it's super common, but I think if
you're willing to dig,
I don't think it's out of print or anything, but I think you can get your hands on
which I would like to see
North
again.
American copy.
I would like to see again.
Yeah,
I've seen the Lake House, and it was predictable. Sadly.
Yeah, I mean. It has one of the worst endings I've ever seen in a movie. I remember when I watched it the first time, I was just appalled. I could not believe that they ended it that way. It's even more insulting when you know how the original Ilmari ended.
Sorry. Finish your thought, and I'll give mine.
I think someone's trying to get in.
Is somebody trying to get into the room? Maybe I think it's. We just for reference, the Halton room is beside the staff lounge. So so there's stuff going in and out through this room, through the back halls, and I think that's what's about to happen here.
Oh, okay.
Scooter's I think it's a scooter. Anyway,
yeah. So the panel's essentially. Just kind of mainly doing an analysis of the room or it's not the room, doing an analysis of Your Name and making fun of the Lake House as we go along. Mm-hmm. So,
well, it gets more interesting, especially with the revelation in the last couple weeks that there was I think Keanu or Sandra Bullock. There was I think Keanu did have a crush on Sandra Bullock in real life. During Speed.
Really?
That's adorable.
So that just adds to the element that they've had such a good chemistry, but they never explored a personal relationship. And we found out that at least on one side, I think it was Keanu's side, there was interest. So
okay.
Oh, okay.
But that's a talking point. That's why I found a lot of this hilarious, just because in light of that news. That piece of news, which is now news to you guys. I can tell.
Yeah, news to me. Yeah.
But that's where just Google that one, and you'll read that type of stuff now.
Yeah,
so, looking back on it, because obviously this is the second movie they did.
And I know you mentioned at the beginning of the panel one thing that you also missed. I included some vintage footage of Keanu Reeves with the what's the name of the show he did on CBC back in the 80s?
Oh yeah. Okay. I know where you're.
Yeah,
going.
yeah. Anyway, I had a couple clips of that in there, which I always like. People always love seeing baby Keanu. So yeah.
So I had to ask about that.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got to do that panel again. It went over pretty well. And then I have one more panel tomorrow. Blatant copyright infringement in anime, which is all about songs in anime that are very obvious ripoffs of popular Western music.
I will tell you now that that's I seem to hear that a lot watching Netflix's Terrace House.
Yeah,
that was great. Okay, so the other reason I had you on, and oh, by the way, one other thing, I didn't realize you and Kevin actually know each other, and and that Kevin's actually done your Zannen.
He was on like the first or second episode.
Yes,
yeah,
I was looking
in a
back
very early episode, and I was on the forums for quite a while. Yeah.
Yep, sure were.
Yeah.
So the two,
good times.
So the two have known you two know each other. So that's worth mentioning. Well, at length, last episode we talked about IFF, International Fan Festival here in and how it goes with Anime North. Well, you have what's your spin? I wanted to ask a bit about your spin, and I don't know how this conversation could go, because obviously Anime Revolution is put on by the same people who do IFF.
Sure is.
And then, of course, this is your first visit to Anime North, which I know may also draw some comparisons with Anime Evolution, the dormant or maybe nearly defunct Anime Evolution. Back
to say it is nearly defunct is very generous. That convention is toast.
So like it's still running.
Technically, it's
quotation marks running.
Technically on the record.
And it's like the folks that run that. There are some good people who try to run Anime Evolution, but they really need to do something different, because trying to have this idea of trying to resurrect a summer convention when that whole, or like a 3-day summer convention when that role has been completely and utterly seized from them, and some might say rightfully so. They got to do something different at this point.
It feels like
they got to rebrand, move to a different part of the year, or maybe think of something to do besides a convention. Not everything has to be a convention.
Yeah.
There are other business models that don't involve an artist alley. Have you thought of any of those? But anyway, yeah, no. See, coming to Anime North, the very first thing I noticed when I arrived is that this con seems to be held together with duct tape, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
That's sort of how this convention has rolled, by the way,
and
more than 20 years.
It reminds me a lot of if Anime Evolution had expanded to 35,000 people. It would probably look something like this. Granted, I don't think that Anime Evolution would have been capable of playing
it this way.
Yeah,
I think part of it is, and I wish James was here now, because we'd be able to tell you maybe how it has managed in this form.
Yeah,
literally because it has been here.
The key thing with Anime North, and this is something that Anime Evolution never was able to do, is that it's diversified so much. This is like several ecosystems of conventions combined together.
Yes.
That is a good, a very, very keen observation.
So, like, what everything that I have been doing here so far has been in the Delta Hotel. I've been hanging out with like Dave Merrill and all the people who work with Norm, basically.
Yeah, Dave and we've hung out a little bit, and
yeah, exactly,
and then of course other friends from other walks, right?
Yeah, but we're all like one little ecosystem here. From my perspective, like what's going on in here, that is kind of most of the convention for as long as I've been here, and it feels a little smaller because of that. And I'm also surprised that I have never, despite the fact that this is like one of the top 5 conventions in North America in terms of attendance, always consistently, I have never stood in a line for anything yet, which I'm told is not the case this is not what you would experience in other parts of the con if you were in one of those other ecosystems.
The gaming side. Well, the gaming side takes place across the bridge, across the the Dixon Bridge that goes over Highway 27.
I probably will not even.
It's okay.
How long is the walk? Because I've never taken the walk myself.
It's like maybe 10 minutes, and apparently, in terms of the staff lounge, the better food is there. But I always made the joke that, like, all the unwanted people go to the Sheraton. So the video gamers, I think all the yaoi stuff is there now. I don't know if North is there or not. Well, they're nice people, but it's the alternative crowd, so to speak.
Yeah, the manga library now. Yeah, North is in the Crown Plaza. Sheraton also holds the manga library, which had been a feature. Like
that used to be in this.
Yes,
hotel.
it was actually at the other end of this hallway. Actually,
yes.
way over there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it's all these different things that are just kind of strung together, and that seems to be how it functions. Like I have not been in the dealer's hall for more than 15 minutes so far, just because everything I've been doing has been so concentrated in here. I'm hoping I can finally get over there tomorrow. I did see that flea market on Friday night.
The Nomanoichi.
Oh yeah,
that one. Yeah,
you mentioned. I saw the tweet. I saw your.
I love I love markets. Just any kind of market, is something I love a lot. Going to Asian countries, just wandering around any kind of market, going to flea markets, stuff like that. I think it's a great concept, but it was just impossible for me to carve out any time because I had my panel at 8, then I had to get to Anime Hell, which was
the big highlight for you.
The second thing that I wanted to see after doing the Bionics panel here is that I want to see Anime Hell, and I did, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and I only get to see like the intro because then I have to get away to start preparing for this.
Yeah.
That's always the gag whenever we tape the show because we know we're going head to head against Anime Hell. No chance in hell for us. I've always stated I'm quite okay with that. So
ever since they moved it to Friday, I can't attend anymore because I always need to do takedown for Nomanoichi for my own stuff.
Yes, that's my story. When I did Nomanoichi a couple years ago myself. So really, there's no other. We don't know of any other do any other conventions have the flea market concept? Not because the way he
Anime Weekend in Atlanta does.
AWA.
Yeah, that's the
it
only
sounds
one
like
that
sounds like an AWA thing.
But I know Dave's involved with that too, so I don't know if that's the influence or not. But yeah, I know they do it for sure.
Because the way I looked at your tweet, you made it, and yes, I'm naive. I don't always keep up with other conventions. It just doesn't sound like it's a concept we see often.
I haven't seen it at another convention, but it doesn't feel. I don't think it's really a West Coast gone kind of thing to see something like that. So, but on that note, with Anime Evolution, they never diversified the way that Anime North seems to have. It's like
it's a for better or worse.
Yeah, but the thing is, Anime Evolution. What Anime North does is good because it's an east. Well, not East Coast.
It's an Eastern Canada.
But Eastern Canada, Eastern North America kind of run con in a lot of ways. But West Coast cons are different, and that doesn't mean either one is worse or better. But there are certain expectations with a West Coast con because when you're a West Coast con, you have a very distinct advantage over Eastern cons in that you can bring in industry guests from Japan very easily. You were in the best position to do that. Anime Evolution, they ran for 9 years. 9 years, they never once brought in a single voice actor or industry guest from Japan. And that is unbelievable for a West Coast convention, especially in a city like Vancouver.
Yes, and we juxtapose that with IFF here, and obviously Anime Rev there.
So with Anime Revolution, the first year was terrible for Anime Revolution. It was a total mess. And I should point out that as you guys were talking in the last episode, yes, Anime Revolution is definitely a for-profit convention, and I don't like the idea of for-profit conventions generally, but for-profit conventions can be good depending on who's running it. So Kanyo, who's like the super rich guy who basically just dumped a bunch of money into this thing. And to be fair,
so that rumor was true. Okay,
that's how I understand it. This is a business venture for him for sure. I don't know if it's like his own personal wealth or I don't know. I don't know any specifics behind how the money's working for that convention. But to be fair, if it is his own money, there are certainly worse things he could be dumping his money into than an anime convention. But so far, I think it has. I almost hate to say this, but I think it has been good that at Anime Revolution has been for profit because that's the only thing that has allowed it to grow the way it has. To take a step back again to Anime Evolution, they and other like nonprofit groups in Vancouver, they cannot get a major convention off the ground. They can't. It's like New York City, which it's so difficult to get cons off the ground because everything is just so expensive to do it anywhere, and like the infrastructure and groups just cannot cooperate or get things done the way they need to.
As I said, that's sort of the strength of Anime North because of how this area feels about hosting this convention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of, it's a chicken and egg situation. Kind of.
Yep.
Well, it's so like as I said, it's just because the businesses, the hotels, the restaurants in this on this stretch of road, they love this. They love this convention because of the money it can bring in. 30,000 people who could be potentially spending quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's why Anime North holds a lot of I hate to use the word political power or whatever or something, some sort of term.
Holds influence.
Nah, that's a good word too. That's sort of Anime North. That's sort of how Anime North is in this area, and probably why they stayed here.
Yeah, like venues have always been an issue in Vancouver. With Anime Evolution, if people are not aware, the majority of years that con ran was on Simon Fraser University, which you may recognize from the movie G Savior. And rather notoriously, they did not. They had a very kind of shaky relationship with the university. Some parts of the university liked having the convention there. Others did not.
Yeah.
There were certain parts that just completely and utterly worked against them in every way possible. So they did... one year they actually just got shut out of SFU for various reasons, and then they moved to UBC. That UBC year at University of British Columbia, they threw it together so quickly. It was a real gong show. The year after that, they made a special deal with the Vancouver Convention Center, the new West Vancouver Convention Center, which
basically was the backdrops during the Olympics.
Yes,
during the Olympics.
That is it is the most gorgeous venue ever.
It is really nice,
beautiful. The best place to run any kind of event.
Yeah, because the 2010 Olympic cauldron still stands there, right? From what I understand, or at least when I visited in 2010.
The torch is there, and that giant raindrop that you see in the tourism ad for Canada is also there, and that's where you go in Vancouver when you want to become anime. But they got a special deal one year. I think it was 2008 or 2009, maybe 2010. No, it was 2009. When they got to use the Western Convention Center. But the payoff is they had to move the convention from August to June, and for reasons that to this day I do not understand. I don't know what happened here. Their attendance dropped when they moved to the convention center.
Ouch.
A common conspiracy theory is that it was because it overlapped with provincial exams and basically high school students couldn't come.
That makes sense.
Possible, but I even that in my mind doesn't account for just how big the drop was. Or just the fact there even was a drop. And then the year after that, they had to go back to UBC. And then, specifically what happened was they implemented an HST.
On the tickets?
They implemented an HST in British Columbia.
Okay.
But then due to various bullshit, the HST there was a petition to separate the HST again to PST and GST, and it was successful. And the result is that Anime Evolution got audited, and turns out there were a whole bunch of tax problems, and that's one of the things that killed them. So again, a lot of organizational problems.
I could tell you about conventions that have tax problems, but I won't mention said convention. But it unfortunately happened.
James by trade is an accountant.
I've done accounting and payroll, and trust me, I was asked a question about a certain convention. I said, well, unfortunately, if you compare them, unfortunately, they are in trouble, and they had to pay the interest and everything else, I believe. So, but that's the way the ball goes some days.
Okay.
Maybe I'm getting into too much detail here.
But no,
but
I know. Well,
great.
don't worry.
This
It's
is
like I
great.
know about your payroll situation where you're going to an employer levy now and stuff like that. So you're not an individual payer. Sometimes they have their employer pay. So trust me, I know the minutia, and BC can sometimes get crazy. But now you're an employer levy. That's what you guys are for payroll. That's the new thing BC's talking about.
Yeah, but with Anime Evolution, despite the fact that there are some good people who still work in that convention, there were just so many problems that caused it to fall apart. And then there was like a year of anarchy after, where like 12 different groups all tried to start their own events. And I have to confess that I was guilty of also being one of the people who tried to start an event, and I was successful, and that event is still running now. But but the year after that is when Anime Revolution started up, and Kanyo, who, as far as I know, no one in the convention community really knew about or had heard of before, and
he might have figured into one of the stories we talked about last episode.
Okay, I'm not sure, honestly, but anyway, there's been like so much. There's so much mudslinging going on for a few years after that, and a lot of sour grapes going around in Vancouver, which is really unfortunate. I mean, I know that not convention communities are something that's not always going to be. Certainly not going to be something where everyone gets along and agrees on things. If that is the case in any city, I'd really like to know, because that would be extraordinary.
Certainly not Toronto, right?
Certainly not here.
I've heard the stories from Mike. They've had some interesting stories from old CN and days.
From like the Fan Expo. There were Fan Expo and Anime North did have their rival.
I apologize, Mike, for coming late. People are probably wondering why I'm coming in.
We'll talk about that later. So
it got remotely brought up.
Because we heard
that the Raptors won.
Okay, we can talk about that later.
No sports. No sports while I'm here.
We'll talk about that later, because I want to.
We were probably kicked out of the hotel room because we were a little excited.
Okay. The thing is, I want to because Jesse's time is a little short. Is a little short this evening. So because it's already from by our watch 11:42.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, with the Anime Revolution started, and from the very beginning, there are certain things that they pinpointed that they knew would be critical to their success, and things that Anime Evolution was not able to deliver. And one of those things was Japanese voice actors. They brought Joji Nakata.
That was the first
year.
one. I remember that was the first one they did, and they got Joji Nakata, and it felt like they're just going for the jugular with the guests, and they got good guests out. They made those relationships, and they continue to it's a question of why are they doing an event in Osaka? That was the one that left us quite.
I don't know what's up with that.
But you know what I
honestly.
mean? It's interesting how they're going really fast on expansion. They went Osaka, then Toronto.
My suspicion was that they did that to build relationships.
Yeah, to build more relationships. But somehow they built those relationships before, because getting Joji Nakata for the first guest of your first convention feels incredible.
I think Marina Inoue was also there.
Her first appearance outside of Japan ever. Marina Inoue was at Anime Revolution the third or fourth year.
Oh, it was the third or fourth year. Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't there the second year, so I can't remember what happened. Oh, they brought Ariga in twice before she sadly passed away. God, that first year, I'll tell you, I was at Joji Nakata's panel, and they had one panel room, and they had a curtain divider between both halves of that room, and Joji Nakata's Q&A was on one side, and something very loud was on the other side. So
it's sort of.
It was so obviously I think there were problems that came up at the last minute, but it really felt like a lot of people there just had never have you been to a convention? Do you know how this works? It has improved a lot. I do quite like Anime Revolution. There are a lot of problems with it.
It's good.
There are a lot of problems with it. But it is in many ways a convention that is representative of the city of Vancouver. I know in the last episode you guys were talking about how it has this kind of pay for play kind of aspect to it.
Are you saying there's a little expense to living in Vancouver, perhaps?
Let's just say that the BC Liberal government has left quite an impact in that province, and they're not
different type of liberal government, right? As they
they're
say,
not liberals.
We call liberals a little different on the
You guys
East Coast,
think-
as you know, right?
I'm just saying, you guys, Doug Ford's pretty corrupt and everything, but policy-wise, he's got nothing on Christy Clark.
I will say that BCs are a little more crazy over the years and stuff like that. We look at the history and the corruption, especially in NDP. Boy.
That's true.
Just on the subject of Doug Ford, just remember, Anime Hell took place in the same room Doug Ford gave his victory speech in last year.
Yeah.
So, just for reference.
Truly in hell?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying. It is just the same room. I mean, when I hear your story, and then when we juxtapose it with the experiences with IFF this year, I mean, some lessons were learned. Like they came here with some of the lessons learned from Vancouver, and then now there's a few new lessons that are very Toronto specific, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Anime Revolution. I imagine it's still always going to be a little different because Anime Revolution has to be the hometown convention there, whereas here they're kind of a weird competitor and they can try different things. The pay for play feel of IFF. I mean, they have that same kind of weird pricing structure where you can get like a $2,000 ticket almost just seems like a joke.
And somebody paid it.
Did someone pay it? Because someone was saying you could basically you get Toronto and then you get Vancouver and then the next Osaka or some crazy nonsense like that, but you don't get the flight, so you still got to fly out there. You know what I mean?
I think there was one where they pay for your flight, but
wow, that must have been the exclusive whale edition or something like that.
It is a little silly. I know that there's thing, and I think I mentioned that for-profit conventions can be good depending on who's running it and how they're running it, but problems will generally come up, and I feel that the problem with Anime Revolution and IFF lies in that kind of express line aspect to it, which is not that can work. It's not necessarily a problem,
but they need to figure out their scheduling on guests. Like they had panels and autograph lines on Saturday, mixing and matching, and they were only an hour long. Maybe an hour and a half would have been better, and there were definitely better ways they could learn. Like I know we talked last episode, well, not last episode, but a few episodes ago about TCAF, and they had like Eventbrite, but then they said, okay, for this autograph line of Junji Ito, first come, first serve for both days. Maybe they should have done one online, one first come, first serve. But you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's always going to be the thing.
But where the problem might emerge is if they start like deliberately holding back the regular lines for the express lines, or they deliberately slow things down rather than just giving advance access to people who pay more.
Oh, so you're thinking more in advance access to set express lines, so they're ahead of the general time they come in. You know what I mean? And then the general comes in. Well, if they're still signing, you know what I mean?
Or just finding ways to like disrupt or
mess up the regular
line. That doesn't seem to be what they're doing.
Although,
it feels like that's something that they could do,
and we feel like maybe we saw what could that scenario play itself out at IFF when we told in our stories.
Now, I know we did say a lot of bad things, Mike, but I'll admit this: we've been to many conventions. You weren't to this one, but I will say at least IFF was better than Kondo Baka. We were at Kondo Baka.
Oh, I've heard about Kondo Baka.
Trust me, you had to live Kondo Baka to understand Kondo Baka. We lived it, and we still remember it many years on. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
and this was when the
this was
podcast.
Here. Yeah,
this was
before
during the
podcast.
Before the podcast. Oh, was it the year before the podcast?
Yeah, it was
05.
It was about 2 years, like 04, 05, and around there.
So, Yeah, mercifully, I didn't get to see that.
That con got canceled on the second day, no?
Yes. We basically got drunk and went to sushi after we had completed our duties. Let's put it that way. And we're like, okay, we did what we need to do. We helped you guys. We're going out.
Yeah. But it is...
Maybe that's awful.
And another concern I have is that, well, maybe this... Now that I've heard more about how IFF went out, maybe it's not the case, but I noticed that when they were announcing things for IFF, they were really going all out with a few things that Anime Revolution has lacked over the last few years. They have not had a musical performer from Japan for a few years.
Really?
They
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
they have
Really?
not.
Wow.
They do this year. They did announce. I can't remember who it is. Whoever does the Euro Camp opening is going to be there.
They haven't
this
done
year.
a concert. Like, for example, Kevin went to it, but the concert, they charge an extra fee even if you had bought the pass. You know what I mean? So they haven't done anything like that?
They did a few years ago. It was quite a few years ago. And to be fair, there are many even non-profit cons which charge extra.
Of
for
course.
concerts as
normal.
well. So
Yeah,
that's
I
like
just couldn't remember it.
I don't think
I think does that.
I don't
You
think
pay a
that's
little bit
particularly
extra.
egregious myself. But this is like they've only now gotten an artist. They're usually very not. They've been fairly okay with industry support in the past. It's really been suffering the last couple of years, but it has at every Canadian con as well. But they had like full Aniplex USA support at IFF, which is like that's the kind of support they really need to try and get at Anime Revolution. I'm just like
because
I'm
I
not
feel like
sure.
they had a strong relationship because they were there at IFF for Aniplex and stuff like that, not as a panel, but for Faith's Day movie too. You know what I mean? Because one of their producers, I forget her name now, but she was there at IFF and stuff.
I think
she was always in the background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've seen her before, and she's done some panels.
With IFF, there was also a couple of movie screenings. Like last year at Anime Revolution, they didn't show a single movie, like not even an old movie, off a Blu-ray or something. It was really weird.
How were the video rooms? Because we had 2 video rooms.
Yeah, they have two
panel rooms. Was that a similar experience? You'd say?
There were more panel rooms at AR, but there were only 2 video rooms.
Yeah,
we had like a lot. Well, we had like a multi-room that was used for both the big features and and the larger panels.
Yeah, and the panels got the larger part of that room.
Yeah, and then there was
a
we had a smaller one. Basically, the back there was a back partition, and then on the other side was a smaller panel room.
Yeah, so. Yeah, they seem to have more rooms to work with AR, and they have a stage in the exhibitors hall as well. They use for like because in Vancouver we have an astonishing number of amateur idol groups, which I know are becoming more of a thing in other cities. But like it's
for better or worse,
yeah. But I'm not necessarily making any judgment one way or another on this, but. This Vancouver was one of the first cities to have those kind of groups popping up.
Okay,
and there are so many of them now, and they were actually they used to give them their own panels, which would eat up panel space from actual panelists in Anime Revolution. And thankfully, they've just put all the performances down there, which was a very good move.
Well,
and there's also a weird AR has had a weird bias towards live stage events. Like various 4 different types of cosplay shows on the main stage, and they need to diversify how they use the main
a
stage.
version of that actually here. Yeah. I mean, give me a. I was about to say 2 things. One, now that thought's almost gone.
That'll happen.
Panels in general, like you saw the variety of panels here.
Yeah,
and like. You don't really see that do you see that in, like, how's the variety of panels in Anime Revolution?
Not very good. I mean,
sounds like IFF, actually, in many ways.
Anime Revolution, to also keep in mind, it's like that con is about 10,000 people. Okay. It's less than a third the size of Anime North.
Do we have numbers for IFF at this point?
I don't think we had numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hit those type of numbers. You know, I don't think they were coming in to go guns a-blazing. It was more of, we're here, you know what I mean, and see what happens.
AR doesn't give very accurate. They don't give proper attendance numbers. They throw numbers out a lot of the time, which I think are really fishy. Or there's so many
good press.
to be honest, there's so many janky ways that you can calculate.
All I can say is, like, how many people do you feel were at the concert, Kevin? We'll start with there. Do you think a fair amount in that big one?
Well, the room was kind of big, but I think I'd wager it was half full.
Okay, and for me and Mike, when we went to those Fade events, those were the most attended events. I'd say for those autograph lines and for some of the panels,
and
if they weren't
the
conflicting,
itself,
and with
the movie
they
itself.
were.
That's the power of that fan base.
But that was an incredible amount of people.
I was
I'm not
taken
sure.
aback
Like,
by
I
it,
feel like
actually.
we hit some high numbers. I'm not sure about 10,000 high numbers, but you know what I mean. Like, I feel
For
for our
first
first year,
attempt.
we hit some good numbers for the events they promoted. Let's put it that way.
Now it
Promoted.
gets interesting for them, because I hear various rumors as to when the next Toronto IFF will be. I'm hearing June. I don't know why that, but I forgot exactly where I heard that for some reason.
Like next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Like
because it happens
depends
so
if they
close
want to do it
like
convention
just over a
center,
month
right?
away from
Because
it.
convention center can go back and forth
Yes.
and stuff like that. And maybe there was no one for that Easter weekend, right? That could have been it, maybe.
Yeah, and so we don't know. So that'll be the real question mark for IFS future. What time frame will they ultimately settle on? Because obviously doing it so close to Anime North, that was interesting. I'm not totally sure if it was good or bad, but
And
it was
they
interesting
got, they
have.
got people from our community and from outside, because we were talking to people online that were from Michigan and stuff like that. So there were people from outside of
wasn't-
Ontario and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It wasn't the
and
worst-
probably maybe, as Kevin said, the Fate fan base probably came
Yeah.
out
Because
too.
when will you have 4 of those voice actors come in one convention?
That was, having seen
That's a
Japanese
huge
Seiyu
draw.
was an interesting.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah,
big.
no, it was interesting.
Also, just going back to my thought from before, like in terms of a for-profit convention, like my fear was when I saw IFF announced with all these features that Anime Revolution didn't have at the time. I think we're going to see that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
and
come
I
back
think
this year.
yeah,
personally, but with IFF, my concern is that because Toronto's a bigger market, that they were going to set their sights on Toronto and kind of let and give Toronto all the goodies and kind of let Vancouver fall on the wayside.
That'll
just
be
keep,
an interesting story as we go through.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm-
so the center of the universe theory, huh?
yeah.
No need to feed Toronto's ego any further, really.
Yeah. Now that I've heard more about how IFF went, I'm not quite sure if that's really the case anymore. But I think they obviously have an intention of kind of competing with Anime North to some degree, which I don't think, like, they're certainly not going to overtake Anime North, which would be
The
ridiculous.
icon, the
but,
institution.
right? I mean, I've been talking with Mike and others about this, and there's certainly areas where Anime North, like, can withstand or can take competition or should,
which
or
Mike?
perhaps you.
Oh,
Or was
really?
I think I was talking with you about that.
Okay, cool.
Where
My age showing up.
yeah. Well, there's also just so many mics.
It's a common name.
Yeah, how they Anime North is ripe to receive competition in so many ways.
Yeah,
or in some
that's
ways.
probably
yeah.
a fair way to say that. And as I said, they're the icon, the institution. Not much will phase it, regardless of its issues.
Yeah. I know that, like, not working with industry has been a big issue with Anime
Yeah,
North
and
that I've noticed.
That was from the start, and that was the fan-rooted nature of Anime North.
Yeah, but
and
you-
we've heard the many stories. We heard from the beginning with Bandai and other ones where they said they wanted those big convention booths that we see in the States and stuff like that. And they said, well, you can come and do a few things, but you can't have the big booths.
See,
and stuff
that-
like that.
that
and that's
is-
continual. And I do agree that feels outdated,
Really?
right?
I was not aware of that.
That is really questionable. That is you can't.
But I'm not sure how they
It's
feel
misguided.
now. But
It's-
you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
It-
The
those are
mentality that has...
I think it's misguided ideals or
Well, we talked about
Yeah.
how Anime North sometimes is set in some ways is set.
Yeah.
Remember,
So-
Mike, it is the largest fan-run convention in Canada or something like that.
Fan-run event. I think that's
fan-run
that-
event.
and
So
that's-
that kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed and stuff like that. So you
And
take the
it's-
good with the bad.
Yeah,
and
I mean
there's good
that.
with the bad.
And like this is the angle that the entity that calls itself Anime Evolution is still pushing in Vancouver as well. That they're the fan run event, and just what what is the value of that?
Well, you're seeing
what is that like? What I can understand why that's a good thing, but like how far can you take that really?
No, you're seeing it here, but as I said, it's you said it well yourself, kind of duct taped.
It's something that I'm starting to struggle with just as an attendee because I want to see voice actors, I want to see Japanese performers, I want to see creators, and we seldom get that kind of stuff here.
Yeah, as I said, there was that when IFF happened, there was that feeling of affirmation for Toronto fans, I think.
Like, I feel like, as we said, we talked about guests, and the big ones were TCAF getting the manga guests, and then the other one I think back to is it might have been Fan Expo, or it might have been when they were still CN Anime, but remember it was like Trigun's creator, Chrono Crusade's creator,
and
then another
Utena's
manga
and Utena's creator back even further back, almost 20 years ago.
I think you were with me there, Mike, and everyone got their autograph. Everyone was happy. They had a drawing event, and it was just crazy and stuff like that. And it like felt great because those were big names at the time and stuff like that. And it feels like you haven't gotten those as much. You know, I mean, maybe you've gotten either older names or newer names, not.
The last big guest I remember at Fan Expo was probably Amano.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The Vampire Hunter D guy.
Mm-hmm. I will say this much, and just as a nugget for the future, I saw where the concert took place, and it wasn't where I hoped it would take place. We are talking, and you know what space I'm referring to now when I
say Bassett?
The John Bassett Theater, which is just down the hall from there.
I don't know why me and Mike even thought they would possibly get, because then they'd have to charge even more.
Oh yeah, that's the interesting.
That was my first thought about the concert hall. Yeah. I wasn't expecting to be in that little room. Well, not little room, but that room.
It would have been interesting if they managed the John Bassett Theater, which is in the part of the convention center. That's where Canadian Idol happened back in the day.
And we remember, Mike, I think, was it Angela when they performed for CN Anime? They were there as well.
Yes. Angela performed on that stage.
And we did not get charged for that, just to let you guys know.
I was there for that concert.
When Angela performed at CN Anime Fan Expo, whatever you want to call it, back in the day, and then the Masquerade took place in the John Bassett Theater as well. That year.
Well, that was 2004.
For a couple of
Wow, it
years.
just feels so way back since they've used that space, you know what I mean, for anime events, and then it's just trickled down.
It is, I wanted to mention it because maybe, like, at a point, like, maybe that we could end up seeing it again used for IFF. Who knows? Mm-hmm. That's just pie in the sky for all I care. Anyway, but I just wanted to leave that thought. And you have any last thoughts? Because that's quite a lot.
Yeah, that's. I mean, a lot of my view is kind of speculative.
Hey, that's how we do it here. Sometimes
I don't know, but Anime North is neat. I like it.
Overall, despite its all its warts.
Despite all its warts, the weather has been
very. You brought a bit of British Columbia weather, just like they did for IFF. Except it was even more rainy.
And it reminds me of Anime Evolution at UBC, where it's a huge part of the convention is just people standing outside. It seems like this convention is not designed to be rained on.
Oh yes, that's one way to put it.
We've had some worse rains, to let you know, so it could have been worse.
Yes, but I'm trying to remember the last time it rained during an Anime North, because it hasn't happened.
It's been a few years.
It's been a few years. We've had a lot of heat. Let's put it that way.
But this has been a lot of this has been an interesting mix, because it has gotten quite cool here.
And as someone staying in an Airbnb rather than a hotel room, because I couldn't get a hotel room. Not being able to have somewhere to go and change clothes or rest or grab some Tylenol or something.
How are you feeling now, by the way?
I'm doing good.
Because by my clock we were at almost an hour, and you've done great.
So it really sucks not being able to go back to the hotels during the convention, which would have been a lot better.
It's sort of remember, I've always mentioned I live 10 minutes away myself, so. So I haven't done a hotel in years here, but
At least you don't have to deal with traffic, Mike. If you had to deal with traffic.
So,
boy.
No, but but now after a little while, you figure out a few things about how to get around without having to deal with too many of the car headaches.
The gas station is your friend.
Yeah,
if you're going to the TCC.
You're saying you love Shell. Is that what you're trying to say?
If you're driving east on Dixon Road,
I
go into the gas station, then you do a little quasi U-turn.
All I can say is if you're coming west, don't go on 401. Go towards the airport up 427 to Dixon instead of getting off of Dixon going east.
Yeah, I took Martin Grove all the way.
You take the magical Highway 27.
Well, that's to and from work sometimes too. Anyway, I don't know. That's one way. Well, as I said, I appreciate those thoughts. I really appreciate the thoughts, at least from very much an outsider, because obviously we mentioned this is a very Toronto show. So thanks for coming in. As I said, it's been a real pleasure.
Sometimes you can convince me to come to Toronto. So
how many times have you been to Toronto?
This is my, not counting when I was a very small child, my second time.
Well, I've been to Vancouver once. As I said to you, it's a very walkable city.
It is.
I loved it there.
Yeah, so. when I go to Anime Revolution, I just take the transit. I take transit there. So
the SkyTrain.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everyone's telling me to go to Vancouver. It's beautiful, and then they said to go to Vancouver Island, to Victoria, and stuff like that. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I haven't been to the island in quite a long time. My quasi co-host Carl Olson did move to the island, so he hasn't been on the show as much, and I haven't seen him since he went there. I gotta go visit him.
How long was
that? It was almost a year ago.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, as I said, as soon as I learn a bit of Skype, I'd love to, hopefully I can.
It's not that hard.
I know. But you guys know me. I'm horrible.
Skype up to the microphones. That's the question.
Well, you saw me. I brought my Yeti mic. I brought my Yeti mic anyway for
for Fred Schodt.
For Fred's.
Not sure if you mentioned that. So.
Yeah, we mentioned that, and. So ultimately, I use it for my own monologue. So there's no reason I couldn't. I just have to give myself the time to learn it properly, which I'm not good at, I guess.
You always talk about being old school, but I kind of wish I was using the mixer setup instead. It gives you a lot. You get a lot of flexibility.
So you don't mind seeing all this, even though you saw how long it took me to set it up.
Yeah,
you were quite okay.
You showed him the chaos, the inner sausage works of how it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I use the Yeti mic for my show, and it's fine because you mix it down to such a low resolution or such a low bit rate just to distribute it that it kind of doesn't matter. But
my own stupidity puts it at 128. Just for reference. I don't know why. I maybe I should lower it further.
32 is fine.
64. I can go to 64, I suppose. Maybe in the future.
It was okay. We did okay this afternoon.
Yeah.
We did okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, we'll hype it up. But yes, we did interview Fred Schodt. James and I did interview Fred Schodt earlier.
I think
today.
I don't want to contribute anything. I would say it was Mike who did most of the interviewing because I was kind of a little further away from the mic, so who knows if they even heard me if you get to hear that.
And you'll get to, and you guys, everybody out there who's listening, both of you, will get the chance to hear that interview. Chances are Fred's going to mention it on his Twitter feed, and you'll get to hear that interview in a couple days' time. I just want to take a listen of it by myself, too, before actually putting it up. But we'll put, me and my lack of editing, we will put it up the way that in real time as we actually recorded
I think it represented us very well, Mike. I think it was very much representative of the show. And I think Fred got a kick. He definitely got a kick from start to finish. I think he got a kick, though, and he loved us.
There were times I looked clueless. You'll know why, but when you hear it, so.
Fair point, but I say we had a string and we followed it through. We had a schedule, we went through it. And we work through, and we'll tell we normally do.
Yeah, and we'll tell you all about it, I guess, later on. Mm-hmm. All right. How much longer can you stick around, Jesse?
I'll stay for a bit.
Okay. Glad you're feeling better. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll continue talking with Jesse Betteridge as we conclude night number 2 here at Anime North. It's the Roundtable on the Six Talk Podcast Network. Here we go. The podcast now continues in front of a live audience. There are actually people, just Jeff Gregg's here, actually watching us tape. In front of a live audience, online via the Six Talk Podcast Network. I'll tell you the story behind that name. I've told the story a few times already. I don't think Jesse knows.
No.
And so, once again, fulfilling our obligations as an official podcast for Anime North, Norm McEvoy, one of the program directors, makes his annual appearance. This is always a tradition whenever we do the Anime North episodes, when we have Norm talk to sit in on one of our last segments. And he's sitting here again. So, welcome. Well, welcome back.
Well, let me tell you, brother.
And
yeah, I know. It's just fun to be back. Great to have you guys back. It's been a
second year for our second year back.
Second year for your Anime Roundtable reboot.
Yeah, the reboot.
And it's great, back here. Everybody's having fun. You guys look like you're doing good. So.
We had a lot of fun today. First of all,
yeah.
As I said, a personal thank you for earlier today when you helped let us use the office space to interview Fred Schodt.
I think the hardest part was convincing you that Eileen wasn't going to be angry at you for it, but that room you was in, that's normally our display room, and it's a nice quiet place. So
and we were having fun with it, like watching all the people walk by as we were talking for that hour. We were looking at all the people, and Fred was really watching all the impressed with all the cosplayers. As we mentioned, one of the first things you did when we came into the office earlier to do the interview, Eileen showed us those pictures from 21 years ago because you did the panels with them. And go ahead.
1998, Missioner, our second year. That was when we went to a 2-day con, and I had the fun of sitting on a panel with Fred Schodt, Fred Perry, and Jim Falker, who's still here.
Yeah.
So that was.
And we saw those photos. I have the photo here. I have the photos here, so we'll show that after we're done to you guys after we're done the segment. But that was interesting. Now I remember who I did the history panel with. I remember another name we did the history panel with. Fred was in it, and I was with him in that panel. There's one other name I remember. It was James Bade, who's gone
on to
other things
he
himself.
Works in other conventions. Yes, James.
James Bade sat in on that history panel with us. In terms of Toronto fandom, he's a historic figure in terms of Toronto anime fandom here. Because he was involved here with this convention in its early days as well, and
he went his own way, but
good man.
He's come back to help with other events and help with us, and
he's a good man. Good man. Yeah. He has his own YouTube channel, J-Ban. Yeah. So, which maybe I guess I'll do a quick plug for him, and we'll put a link to that. But he sat in on that panel that day too. So, I don't know if it was just the three of us now that I think about that.
Remember those old first year we had Dr. Dave Stevens there, the doc, and another man.
Yeah, he was
wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, I'm trying. Much of it is now gets real blurry too. Admittedly, 97 was a 1-day thing, and then 98 you increased it to 2 in the old Michener.
If I called 98, they weren't receiving the medical samples at the front desk anymore during the convention like they did the first one, and that was.
Yes, that's right. Well, once again, just a reminder: the Michener Institute is a medical facility. Is a medical facility, teaching facility, with U of T associations.
They were getting various parts to do tests on, and that's what we told people. What's all these body parts in the lobby? Oh, that's our Neon Genesis evangelical display. Cool.
It was that type of. It was a weird mix at the time.
Yeah, but I do recall. I mean, meeting Fred, he's a really cool guy.
Yes, he is.
And he just, very quiet but well spoken, and just this wealth of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Then we got him. We got Helen McCarthy and Charles Dunbar. It's just great to have guys like that around.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to touch base with her with Miss McCarthy. Actually, she's a charming lady.
All we need is to get Helen to get Jonathan Clements to come on over, and then we have even
more.
That'd
be great.
Like he's one that's
by the way,
like the next one.
And I'm going to ask James to straighten out his microphone, or that way. Thank you.
Just don't ask her about Brexit. It's a
sensitive issue. Still,
it's kind of tough
for her. It is. Yeah,
understood.
It's tough for a lot of us that have had history there. You know what I mean?
Well, I only think about my mother and grandmother, my aunt, because they all came from Scotland.
Okay.
They immigrated just after the war.
Now I can see the look. I can see the look.
All right.
It's even tougher for us because we have the North Irish, and you hear about that. You know what I mean? Oh boy.
Oh, you mean like the North Irish? Yeah. Well, that was my grandfather. Came from.
Too as well.
Sandy Row. Well, Portadown, Ireland. But
Surgeoner was ours.
we weren't Irish. Because my mother told us, no, we're Scots. We're Scots.
Oh boy, we were told we were Irish.
Anyhow, it's what's going on over there, and Helen's very much on it, and wow. Anyhow,
meanwhile, James is trying to tighten the mic.
Sorry
screws.
about that, Mike.
I just remember being with the missioner. There's a lot more floors. It wasn't this working here. We're more laid out. We don't have to go up and down floors as much.
Well, the thing is, there was never a staircase there. When you went, the panels took place up on a third floor, and as far as I remembered, it was just an elevator.
Well, there were staircases, all right. Believe me, I had to go up them a few times.
They were just not. Well, it's certainly not obvious anyway. That's my memory of it at the time.
We've been trying hard to get them back, Fred, and we finally connected.
Yeah, that was great. I was surprised.
I remember running into him at the Waterloo Animation Festival, which sadly is no longer around.
Yeah,
really?
What
Wow!
year
Went to that. Which one? Because they did some really good ones. I know the last one was a few years ago. I remember, and they just disappeared, didn't they?
Well, I'm not sure what happened. I think the fellow that was backing it no longer is. And
what year was that?
That would have been, oof.
I want to say 2015, 2014. Like it feels like a long. Maybe
before
that. Yeah, you're right.
And it had to do with them introducing the Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay.
And
he had John O'Donnell at that
John
one too.
O'Donnell,
I remember he had a thing with him, John O'Donnell, and was Fred Schodt there too? And in the couches, you know what I mean, Norm?
Well. Oh, that was at Anime North. Yeah, we did.
There was one I read. They were in the couches or something like that, and they were doing it before the screening. You know what I mean?
Oh no, the couches were we did the talk upstairs in the students' lounge, but we had to rearrange everything and put it all.
That was where we did the panel. Yeah, that's where we did the history panel. So.
Yeah, and that was comfy to do it in, but putting it together was a pain.
Yeah, so I could imagine. Well, it was. Remember, it's not. That wasn't the best venue. It was what we had. What you guys had at the time.
Well, they picked it because that's where the U of T club, UTARPA, met for their showings originally. So that's why. And they looked around. They were familiar with it, so that's why you got picked.
Okay.
Then down the road, and eventually, a couple of years later, we had the nerve to pick a hotel, and then
Well, you picked that hotel. It was if memory serves me right, a Ramada in the 401 400 area or something.
Yeah, well, that's they fancy worded how. Well, are you really an airport hotel? Yeah, we're within the airport. Yeah, barely. That hotel today, well, that sadly is. It's better.
Seen better days.
That's to put it politely.
Then came here to start coming into the Airport Road Dixon area.
Well, first we went to the Marriott.
Yes.
Then we went to the Regal Constellation.
Okay, so it was the Constellation.
Yeah, and the Regal was legendary. It was one time the biggest hotel in Toronto, but you could tell its better days were gone because when the owners weren't keeping it up, and then the one North Tower. Mm-hmm. You couldn't use it because of asbestos.
And then it closed.
It closed.
And then it closed, and kind of caught you guys by surprise, if memory serves me right.
I thought they sold it to Steve Stavro and his group. You know, I mean, the former Nob Hill owner and former lease owner.
But for whatever reason, it wasn't there.
I'll tell you, one group that used it was the Toronto Police. That North Tower, they were doing their SWAT training exercises in it.
It's a legendary hotel.
Wow.
Now it's a legendary parking lot.
Yeah, it's a legendary parking lot.
I was going to say, there's nothing there now.
That caught us by surprise. We had to do some fancy scrambling. And
you guys did what you could at the time, right?
Yeah, but then we ended up at the hotel that's now called Sheraton there.
Basically,
it was like Renaissance, I believe.
The Renaissance.
And so it was Renaissance, and we were there because we couldn't get DoubleTree, and we had Renaissance, TCC, and I think that was it. That was it. Yeah, for that 1 year.
Just for
2003.
Here now, start to give you some of the history, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
The Sheraton. What's now the Sheraton was the main hotel. For
in 2004.
That far back, so 15 years ago.
1 year. Yeah.
That 1 year, and then TCC. So
Okay.
just the south building of the TCC, I believe. those were the two main venues. Obviously, you know the distance. You now are familiar with the distance because it was across the 27 bridge.
Yes.
So you can imagine what would have happened there. People were either walking or they had a shuttle bus. There was a school bus that was using a shuttle
bus.
And it was either that year or the year after. There was a thunderstorm, I remember, in the middle of the night. And we went through, and it was something.
Actually, in 2004, they had a thunderstorm that killed the power in the TCC during the masquerade.
Oh, it must have been that one.
And the audience loved it. They loved it.
You just go with it, right?
They're throwing the luminous beach ball around and everything. Next year they ask, "Can you do it again?"
That's the history here.
Yeah.
And you guys have been here. So we're talking the better part of 15 years now that we've been based in this area. I keep forgetting the exact time frames.
Well, in 2005 we came here and we lucked out with the fellow that has done a lot for us here. I'll name him. Bill Powers is the assistant. I forget his exact title, but he's the guy we negotiated with and dealt with us, and he's been
He's still here?
Oh, hell yeah!
So that makes
and he's been great for us.
Yeah, and obviously it's become this. As I said, we jokingly say for better or worse.
Well, we are very fortunate in how the hotel we've had. And thing is, a lot of and for anybody you want to work at a convention, start a convention, being on good terms with your venue is very important. But sometimes the venue, you work together. But we've been fortunate in our choice of venue, So I don't think people are talking. Wow, why don't you move to the Metro Center downtown? Well, I don't think we can get to do what we do down there, like we do up here. We wouldn't have the freedom. Plus, and I'm not knocking the Metro Convention Center, but it is a federal-owned property. And there's times when, your event could be bumped out or bumped over, put back a week, because something they want to do gets put on. That's happened to the Fan Expo. Mm-hmm. So you are at their mercy. So not a knock at them, but they're a different type of facility. So here we've had a lot of freedom and a lot of free reign, And the people across the road, sometimes, like 2 years ago, we got bumped up the North Ballroom to make room for the
Conservative Convention,
for the Conservative
which
Party.
has been a gag, which was the leadership convention.
I heard all about that.
That was great.
The Ontario one's than the federal.
But that wasn't entirely their fault. That was their owner is a big Tory supporter, but the RCMP had a hand in that too because he said, "This is the facility we want to use for security purposes." So,
yeah. Well, when you look at when I think about that area.
And it's isolated, right, for that number and building and stuff like that, so they can make it work security-wise.
I've been here when he was Prime Minister Harper.
Well, because
around the security.
Because they also held a policy convention in that.
They had
building.
a policy, and I remember one of the CN ones, the mini cons. They had the first one when they elected Harper as the leader of the first conservative
at the convention center?
Yeah, that was there. And I remember I saw Peter McKay and stuff like that. I had some words for him I won't say, but it's interesting.
Harper has he has stayed here. They called it Prime Minister's Suite upstairs for a reason. And it's fun moving stuff in the back halls when you see the men and women in black, and they're basically... They were cool about it. I'll move these wagons and stuff in and out. And they're pretty cool about it, as long as you're not, doing what you're not supposed to. So
it was interesting.
This
we
is
heard
an
about the
idea, the story in many ways. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the idea of people going back and forth, and they had good words for us. We always had good words, and the good thing is we all got along, which is what we always wanted and what we always told the people. And is even great in the all-night room. We saw some conservative support. I saw one guy, he had his button on that, and he was enjoying what he saw, and I talked to him, and he was a good fella, you know what I mean? And that's what we want in this world. We want the conversation to continue on, and I hope everyone gets that. You know what I mean? Well,
I do know one thing. One thing I think the Tory supported, what they really like is fighting maids with MMA gloves and such. They really seem to like the maid outfits. I'm just saying.
Hey-o.
That's something we just learned, didn't we? So I don't think we knew that.
No, as I said, during your...
So any other questions about what's going on at the convention?
Well, I mean, as I said, you've treated us good. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, when you said when we talked about your appearance, we want to talk a little bit about some of the people some figures who have passed away over the last year.
I was talking about it. One was in the world of anime, a fellow named Monkey Punch.
Yes.
Now, if you recognize, we're showing a Lupin movie right now, The Eternal Blood Mermaid. Now, what Lupin was a character that Monkey Punch created, and that's his most famous character, iconic cat. And he's one of the most iconic characters in anime and manga, and Monkey Punch was his creator. So he passed away this year, I believe.
And then not too long, roughly around the same point, Koike, the creator of Lone Wolf and Cub. So
Again, yeah.
And he had a long history with Dark Horse, and we had many of those.
Yeah. Another figure which I told
you and this is not quite, but a little different. You mentioned.
Wait, we're not going to talk about Mad Bull 34?
What?
No.
Oh, yeah, I think.
Well, okay.
Maybe Crying Freeman.
I'm going to another realm, the world of professional wrestling. Now, to put this in context, it's very, how popular it is in Japan. Well, an American wrestler, a fellow named Dick Beyer from Buffalo, New York, he's better known to the world as the Destroyer. Now, Destroyer was iconic. He was an American wrestler, but he was one of those guys that was iconic in Japan. I mean, popular here, one of maybe the greatest masked wrestlers ever. One of the most well-known. I put him up along with El Santos, who was a Mexican legend. Dick, well, what do you say? What he was best known for at first, in 1963, he wrestled a man named Ricky Dozen. Now, Ricky Dozen was maybe, how to describe him? Think of you
The short version, may I give my short version?
Yes.
Basically, he was the benchmark, the godfather, the father of Japanese pro wrestling.
Yes. And in many ways, he's a man, he helped, after in the post-war Japan, he helped the Japanese regain their self-confidence, regain some pride, because he was the Japanese fighter.
Ironically, he was actually
yes,
Korean.
I was going to get into that, mention that too.
Sorry.
He was a former sumo wrestler. Not big and not that huge, big size that they like for sumo, but good enough.
Well, I mean, Ricky Dozen, that was actually his sumo name.
Yes.
So his Shinkon.
He's actually born in. Ironically, he's a major figure in North Korea, because he was born in the town that is now in North Korea. So. But he was a huge star, and not just in the ring. He was one of those. He's like The Rock, where he had fandom everywhere, and in his forte, he battled many the foreign wrestlers, the Gaijin wrestlers they called them. Like him and Fred Blassie had classic feuds. Killer Kowalski, Dick the Bruiser,
Luthez, I know, is on that list.
Luthez. He had a series of matches with Luthez, and believe me, he had a victory over Luthez in Japan. And let's put it this way: back in that day, you didn't beat Luthez unless Luthez was going to let you beat him.
And I think that's why. And I think the Japanese partly knew that too. Luthez, I know, is revered there still to this day. In the Japanese pro wrestling world.
Well, Luthez was the kind of man, and if he was around today, he'd be stretching guys in the octagon. That's how tough and good he was, and that's the respect between him and Ricky Dozen. Where Dick the Destroyer Bear comes in, 1963, he had a match with Ricky Dozen that had live on Japanese TV, they had over 70 million viewers. Think about that. It was a mark that held for many years. I think they even dropped through a lot of the Olympic coverage the next year. I don't even know they had 70 million TVs in Japan at the time.
That's a story in and of itself.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it was so incredible. But what makes it even more so is Ricky died soon after. He had a ill-fated encounter. Was fatally stabbed.
It was fatally stabbed and died of various related infections sometime later.
And he said he had his last match with him. Well, he kept coming to Japan, and he got in a feud with Ricky Dozen's students, Giant Baba, Shohei Baba. And basically, Baba, started one of the great promotions in Japan, All Japan Promotion.
AJPW, yeah.
And Dick, had a feud with him, and they had an angle where, if I lose, I'll become his tag team partner. Well,
he lost.
And he became his tag team partner, and the Japanese fans they ate it. They loved it. It's like it's like Vegeta helping Goku. Okay, you get the picture? Literally. It's Vegeta helping Goku. Well, thing is, the Destroyer, the Dick, he was instrumental in helping Baba start All Japan Wrestling. And he helped get it off the ground. And it was a legendary promotion.
It's still around, but it's
not what it's.
Yeah,
when
it
Baba
what
died,
it is. Well, then started that
it was the
schism.
end. But the names, you look at the names of not just Japanese and foreign wrestlers. I mean, anybody who was everybody worked for Baba. Mm-hmm. Andre the Giant.
For a time, yes.
Hulk Hogan. Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody, you name him. Bruno Sammartino. Bruno would not have anything to do with Inoki. He didn't like him, but Baba.
Lots of respect.
Lots of respect, and they all trusted Baba. He was a baby. Not so good a wrestler, but he was a great promoter because his word was his bond.
Interesting.
And
see, I wondered about what type of dynamic existed between Baba and Inoki, because they were Ricky Dozen's top students.
Yeah, but they were also who's going to be the top dog, who's going to be the alpha, and they had rival promotions, but in different ways. But Beyer helped Baba get it off the ground to a point where he lived in Japan. And yes, he lived in Japan. Everywhere he went, he wore that mask. This is a man, he traveled in that mask. Everywhere, he wore it everywhere. Airports, traveling everywhere. Now, the law, of course, the law was that you really wanted to see his face, they'd take him in private, at customs or wherever, and take the mask off for them. But this man never took his mask off during his career. I mean, that's what you call. He lived it. And he became an iconic character, iconic figure in Japan, and not just in the ring, but everywhere. On TV, he was a guest on one of the, I forget the name of it now, but it was a Japanese show that was super popular.
Variety or sitcom?
Both. And seriously, and you Google it, you get the name. There's this woman that was the star, and she's kind of like I don't know how to describe a magical figure where she had this giant Gaijin wrestler cowed by her. But his role is to be the kind of the goofy, friendly Gaijin wrestler who wore a mask all the time. Basically, he took the face of foreigners, where before they were big, scary men, like, huge, monstrous guys that people run away from, to, hey, big, fun-loving guy. And he made it
maybe a little
weird,
but
he had a little lot to do with it.
Likable.
And I'm going to say now, anytime you see a masked wrestler in anime, you're seeing Dick Beyer. You're seeing him.
The notion of, that's his final influence. And one of his influences.
All over. And you look at Kinnikuman, that's him. Mm-hmm. And with all the other characters. But he, like you said, he was just a super popularity.
In any way, like you said, aside from the Mexican wrestler, but he once again mainstreamed the idea of a mask.
Oh, he was mainstream. He was just, and when he died, his last match was in I think '93. Mm-hmm. I remember watching him wrestle. He because he lives in Buffalo, he would wrestle in Maple Leaf Gardens and around here a lot. So I remember seeing him wrestle a few times. Of course, the laugh was Billy Red Lions would introduce him as the Destroyer. He'd go, "No, I'm the intelligent and sensational Destroyer. Get it right, Red Lions." Yeah,
that's another legendary figure in terms of Canadian.
From my hometown.
In Canadian pro wrestling.
But and when he passed on, it was major mainstream news in Japan. They were just like, it was major. Everybody
He was loved at the end there. I should look this one up a little more. I knew about his passing.
Yeah, you'll be amazed, like wow,
how much it was regarded.
Yeah, another figure I can,
Well, those are two. So
he may not have been Japanese, but a lot of influence was Stan Lee.
Yes,
Stan Lee.
Well, we mentioned Stan Lee, but what do you want to say?
Well, I've been a Marvel fan since the '60s, and I remember Stan had his fingerprints. Oh, of course, Stan couldn't have done it without Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. But Stan, he created many iconic characters, and broke ground in a lot of ways. Had influence all over the industry, and he had a lot to do with in his later years. He's doing manga arts, but he had a lot of influence around the world. So, I just like I said, ever since the '60s, I've been watching Marvel, Hulk and everything, and that was one of my favorite characters. And he managed to last so long, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, well, it's just once again a sign we're not getting any younger, Norm.
Tell me about it. I just passed my 40 years at Stelco.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Congrats.
40 years as steelworker.
I will tell you this much. Like when Fred saw those photos earlier, we joked. Once he had the ponytail at the time, and your hair was darker.
Yeah.
I thought he said you didn't look any younger. That's what he said.
No, but it was in the hair. You didn't look like you looked very much the same aside from the hair.
It's still my hair. It's still my hair.
Yeah.
When Dave Merrill did a 20th anniversary, and here's the pictures from the Missioner, I'm going, yeah. By the way, that's all still my hair. And all the other guys there's like, you know how that's going, Jesse.
Yeah.
Some point of time, you're probably going to Steve Austin route, aren't you? No,
I've had this discussion with my girlfriend more or less. She will not allow the full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or do the monks.
The full shave, but.
I'm just saying, my own father, he did the comb over and everything. Dad, come on.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that shit. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I think his dad was. He tried to pattern after Humphrey Bogart because that was. He actually looked a lot. He looked a lot like Humphrey Bogart.
Okay.
So yeah.
No.
Still my hair, but that's the way it goes.
So now going into the final day, what are you looking forward to for a final day? I'll ask the others as well before we.
Well,
finish up.
we just got anime, totally lame anime. Put to bed now, and Mike Toole just did his Korean dubs. Now we're showing that movie, and
that I got to say the bootleg anime from South Korea. I didn't see it here. I saw it at SoccerCon a couple years ago. It is my favorite anime convention panel ever. It's so good.
Yeah, and this is always the dilemma about doing Anime North. There's always something to do, and you miss out on other things.
Well, everything I want to do conflicts. There's been so many conflicts.
It happens that way.
This weekend.
We get Mike Toole and Neil Dandelman together. Neil does the 3-hour Totally Lame, and then I asked Mike first. A couple of years ago, he was up. I asked him I didn't just schedule him. I said, "Do you mind doing a panel after Neil?" He said, "Hey, yeah, thanks for asking, but that works out great, and you get a lot of synergy."
That's been there for a long time.
And because of the way things are, because we pulled the wall back to make more room, and that worked. That's a unique thing we do here. There's some things we do here that, because we're so spread out. We got the Sheridan and the other gaming and Yowie North down there. And by the way, we had a year where Yowie North went to another hotel and it didn't quite work out. And gaming actually asked us, "So, are those people coming back? Why?" We had there was just a lot of energy with them around. Plus, they also apparently there's a lot of gay gamers, so they can the Yowie people come and. They just found it more fun with them.
I was there again, and there definitely is energy in the building. Yeah. I was there with Victor Lucas and stuff like that. There's definitely energy in the room. Let's put it that way, in that building.
They made their own T-shirt because somebody who was running the game before said, can we move them out of here into somewhere else? Because the dealers aren't happy. Why? And I mean, that's why. Well, they referred to it. They're who's the people you're talking about? Those people in the room in the hall over there. So they made a T-shirt. That's their slogan. They wear the T-shirt. Those people in that room over there. I still do remember the one year we're doing an Endicon report. Donald's talking about Yowie North. Yowie North was
and Donald Simmons. You're referring to Donald Simmons, one of the co-founders.
And and he referred to and Yowie North was fabulous. I spoke up, Donald. Yowie North is always fabulous. So yeah, they love.
And we remember the years, Norm, where they were with us in the overnight and stuff like that. They were in New York room, remember?
Yeah, we put them.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And so they've grown leaps and bounds.
Oh, yeah.
Leaps and bounds.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious to see some of the reactions of people coming out of that room. Like, I mean,
that was back in the day. I think
in those early
there's
years,
there's probably still reactions, but I think it's definitely an energy, a different energy, definitely over there.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, but it was fun. I didn't mind. It was fun having them. I remember bringing them for a big fan to use their room. He says, "Hey, do you know what this is? No, this is a Yowie fan." They just thought of thanks, or stuff. But yeah, it was always fun having them there. But we, with your expand, we moved them down there. And they go along just fine, Well, now they're Yowie and Yuri together, so.
Mm-hmm.
No, they've definitely taken off both that and the gaming, and they've really created a community over there. And you feel the energy. You feel the energy, and it's a great thing, and you learn stuff, whether you go to any of the rooms. Well,
Yowie is a thing. I think a lot of cons, I don't know how many have actual separate, but yeah, they asked, can we try it? I said, yeah, sure, and it's I think it's worked out, so. Don't forget, Toronto's a very diverse town in many ways. So,
well, yeah. I mean, as I keep saying, this is like you get to see the good citizens that in terms of anime fandom here, at least a lot of it.
Well,
there are bad moments. I know.
Well, you say, we all get, whether your race, your creed, your color, whatever you want to do, we all get together to get our freak on. So, in a good way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just before I come to see you, I was just getting the adult track underway.
In the cold cellar there, in the Paris room.
Yeah.
It used to be very cold. I'm not sure if it's still cold.
I'd rather keep it cold. I don't want
to it's probably a good idea. Because it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. But they basically come in, hoot and holler, and that, and you can tell who's got a strong stomach. Okay, I'm going out.
That's usually what we've seen. Is
once again some of the reactions of people I see leaving the room.
Oh yeah.
Well, so you're going to be up with the rest of the night along with the others?
I'm going to get some sleep at some point in time because I got to be up in the morning to get things going and
for the final day. Yeah.
The final day. Yeah.
Well. Another year, right?
Yeah, we'll have the charity auction going on for one. Raise money because we raise money for
That's always been the tradition.
Yeah.
I know that as a tradition, so.
What else is going on? But yeah, it's so far, we were a little worried about the storm and the rain, but.
Oh yeah, it'd been a couple of years. What was your, well, okay. So, what about the rain from your view?
Well, it's going to hold out. We had a couple in the morning. It was coming down pretty good, but then it stopped off. We were supposed to be. We worried we were going to get hit with a big rainstorm, but it suddenly just veered off. So.
It definitely looked isolated because I remember after our Fred panel, it must have been 5:30 something. I was going towards TCC, and then everyone just ran towards the TCC because we had the isolated thunder shower and stuff like that, but. We've been really lucky today.
The one where we had the outside Genesis concert, but they can run in the rain. The only worry they have about is lightning. I says, no, don't worry about lightning. Why? Lightning, that is Thor giving his approval. If you watch Vikings, you'll get that one.
Well, as always. Well, because we don't have too much time left.
No.
But we're about an hour 37. I'm just looking at my clock here, at the clock of the episode.
The clock has never held us back, Mike. Remember?
I don't want to get into Avengers Endgame territory again either. But
I've seen longer movies, but they usually come with intermissions.
Actually, I was thinking, Norm, is like, how did you like Penguin Highway? Because I haven't seen you there, remember?
Just one last thing, right?
Yes, Penguin.
I actually enjoyed it. I thought
that was a wonderful.
I got to read the novel because the novel came out in April. Now it makes me wonder, so I got to get that from the library.
I hope we can show that next year. But that's Warner 11 Arts, and they're the same people that have like Liz and the Bluebird and gave us permission to show that this year. So I'm hoping we can show that next year. But I loved it. It was just a real fantasy, surreal.
Yeah, like sci-fi fantasy, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that was a great one. It's like, of course, for some reason the kid reminded me of young Sheldon, but.
Really? Wow. I'll have to think about that one.
Well,
no, he had
I guess you're right now that I think about it. Yeah, because he's like, I'm smart and I know everything and stuff like that. And now he's throwing this fish on a water situation.
And I think that's how the voice actor played him as young Sheldon. So, but that was just a.
As I said, I'm going to have to write all these titles down again. This year I have a notebook.
Well, this year we had a few again good anime movies. You know, I saw My Hero Academia. That was a great ride.
Well, yeah, I saw. I saw. Well, you put up. Was it you who put up Fate's Day? Heaven's Field, the first Heaven's Field movie. Or?
That was a dark one.
Well, no, that was the second one was the darker one. The first one I put up, but I figured, I can get away with this one, but that's about it, unfortunately.
Well, the second one is, oh boy.
It's too much. Let's put it this way. I'm not sure how well they were checking at that one convention we were going, but everyone got in, so I think they were above 18.
Well, that was in they showed that in the theater with
it was 14. It was 14A in BC.
But you know what I mean? It's like they still want to check and stuff like that. Like it was an AA for us.
When I saw that movie in theaters, and like seriously, have these people? This is the common experience I've heard about with people watching this movie in theaters. Have these people never seen a sex scene in a movie before? Seriously.
I thought you were going to say, have they ever watched an HBO show before?
Or that. I guess you see more sex in HBO shows than you do in movies these days, or at least Hollywood movies. But
you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh well.
I'm not getting into no Game of Thrones spoilers because
Yeah, well.
But I Twitter already did that for us, so we don't have to worry
Tough
anymore.
for me to avoid, but I'll live.
All I know is The Mountain and the Hound. I think I seen that one with Kane and the Undertaker. So.
Way to go!
Really? Yeah.
Way to go!
It's another one to think about now.
But we also had They did a reboot, Dragon Ball Brawly, and I actually liked that one. How they went into the background. Nobody's ever done this before. Went into the background of the Saiyans and their history and that. And
they took all these little details we've learned over the years and sort of arranged it into something comprehensive.
Yeah.
And if it was the first Dragon Ball thing that you ever saw, the Broly movie, if you watched that and then you went right into the first episode of Dragon Ball Z, you may be fooled into thinking that Akira Toriyama wasn't pulling everything out of his ass as he went along. Yeah, Broly was great. I liked it.
And it's no great stuff, but it gave you what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward. I'm waiting to see I've been watching One Punch Man. I'm waiting to see where they go. I know they're complaining about the animation's not as good as the first series because it's a different studio, but the storyline, though, I'm waiting to see where they go with that. I'd love to see a One Punch Man movie, how they work that one out.
Yeah, as I said, I'm still catching up on my stuff too. So I still have to finish. I still have to finish Goblin Slayer too.
Well, I don't know what anime movies are coming out. You go to the Cineplex site, see what's there. It's all actually they're doing.
That's interesting. Like how's our Cineplex?
The 11 Arts website is apparently indicating that the Sound Euphonium movie is coming in Canada. To Canada, but they also said that about Liz and the Bluebird last year, and that only played in Vancouver theaters, and it played on the one, and I was working and I couldn't see it. So
the question mark, and I was talking to them on previous episodes, is Saga of Tanya the Evil, the movie, and Crunchyroll put it on American theaters a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now they did do Magus Bride,
Yeah.
And it was later, so I'm waiting to see if it gets late June, early July. But it's not a guarantee. Let's be honest. It's a long time.
Saga of Tanya the Evil, I was trying to get that into a theater in Vancouver. They actually, Crunchyroll told me they could not book it because their contracts said that it could only be that U.S. release they did. That's all that they were allowed to do for the first half of the year.
Well,
I don't know how that works. But
well, there's one I'm going to be seeing after
interesting.
Anime North at the JCCC. We sponsor movies there.
Yes.
And there's one called Modest Heroes. I'm waiting to see what that's.
Well, I know when Kevin gets back on the mics towards the end of the episode, is this part of the Japanese the film fest that's coming up in June?
And we always.
I'm going to let Kevin hype it up later, but go ahead.
We always sponsor movies there. We did Black Buckler, the live one. That was great. We did Girl Walk On, The Night Is Short.
I want to see that.
It's so good. It's so good.
I have not had the chance.
Blu-ray, I think it's still
I just have not given. I wanted to see.
I saw that at Van City Theater.
That looks really
If
interesting.
it's the Shout Factory, you can get $20 more.
Remind me.
The reason this one's so weird is it's by the same director who was involved with Crayon Shin-chan. So
wow. Okay.
Wow, that's an interesting.
Wow, that's going way back.
But he worked on Crayon, so that explains something.
A lot of things. It could explain a lot.
Well, say, what was the name? Mary and the Witch's Flower. That's the same studio that Mary's and the Witch's Flower was like. Yeah, hey, look, we're just like it's ex-Studio Ghibli artists, so I'm looking forward to that. I'd see what else shows up. I'm just amazed that anime is coming out in the big theater where for years.
Well, yeah, this has become
outside of rep.
I've noticed this.
Outside of rep theaters,
we're seeing them in
we were
Cineplexes.
talking about that. Like the last few weeks, we talked about Oko's In, which I went to see, and then we went to talk about
Back to the Trooper.
Yeah, no, that was, and that's a child's novel. Remember that in Japan. So that was an interesting experience going through that.
We'll have to just keep keeping up.
There's the release of Millennium Actress
Yes.
coming up, but that has not been announced.
Well, for the
Canada.
And they're doing a new
theaters.
dub, not the Richard Epcar dub that was in the UK and stuff like that. Because remember, it was under Spielberg and them that they did Ghost in the Shell 2 and they did Millennium Actress. I think those are the only two they licensed.
Under the Go Fish.
Yeah, was it Go Fish? Yeah, it was Go Fish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. As I said, I'm so not keeping up sometimes.
Well, that was a millennia ago, I guess, in our thinking.
Well, the big thing, I think Cineplex is they're now doing Ghibli Fest again, where every month they're showing a Ghibli movie.
Yeah, we didn't get that last year, but they brought it back this year.
Yeah, well, you don't need to do that every year.
They do it every year in the States.
Well,
I guess certain ones you can. Like I know they were hyping up Howl's Moving Castle. I think was 10 years. Kiki's Delivery Service was 30 years, I want to say. You know what I mean? So those
they're trying
they're
to
hyping up.
a bunch of different things. I told you about the dinner and they did the dinner and movie type of thing with Kiki's. The crepes done at a Kiki's event some months ago. So I think it was late last year. Anyway, I think we're over time. I think
don't matter to me, but I got to see what's going on back to place. Hopefully
Well, let's see what's going on there.
Hopefully they haven't left any stains there, but
oh my!
Oh boy,
they never do.
Oh my goodness!
They just hoot and
Never,
holler.
really? That's great.
Oh my goodness!
they're respectable gentlemen, I'm sure, and ladies.
Do you give out like cornflakes or something?
There's a thought. Okay, then. So
Sorry, let me plug in my. I accidentally unplug. In leaning back, my earphone, my headphones came unplugged. So just in my own facepalm there.
But anyway, I'm just glad that things have. We had kind of a rough year in many ways. In fact, you saw Eileen.
Yeah, I know, and she hinted to me when she's how's she feeling how's she feeling now? How's she feeling today?
Tired and sore, but considering a few months ago what
she had a medical emergency.
Oh yeah.
So she looked like, as I said, she was hanging in there the first time I saw her, and then she looked a little better today. So I'm glad to see.
So yeah,
that's nothing compared. I mean, that's like I got nothing compared to what she's got.
What's helped her is she got a new kitten, Pixie.
Way to go.
And the little thing is this. Oh, great.
Well, in some cases it can be mind over matter. Once again, thank you.
Okay.
Once again, thank you. As I said, please, if I'll try and get in touch a little earlier in the year.
But you're welcome again.
Yeah.
Say that right.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for everything thus far,
That's
especially the Office earlier today. That was.
I'm glad that worked out.
I hope you enjoy the conversation we had, Fred and I had. So
I'll do my best to listen up.
When we put it up,
send me the link. So
I'll when it goes up, I'll send you a link and then I'll put it on Twitter and for sure.
In the meantime, and in between times.
Good to see you, Norm.
Okay.
All right, so that's it. That's not that's that. We'll take the break. Are you gonna stick around, or you're gonna be off too, Jesse?
It depends how much longer you're going.
Probably no more than 5 minutes in this final segment.
That means we'll probably be another
let's
hour. Just to let you know,
give or take. Let's take a quick break and then we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up right after this. It's the Roundtable from Anime North on the Six Talk Podcast Network. All right, so this is it. Last segment of what's been a bunch of very unique episodes in this show's history. And as I said, you'll hear them the ones we haven't put up yet officially. We'll put up pretty quick.
But what about the show we censored, Mike? Remember that one?
Way back, back in version 1.
No, there's the other one that didn't get released at all.
Yes, that's the one
there was one with Adam and
yes.
Neil that just never came out.
Oh, yeah, Neil. I have to give him a call later still, too. Okay, so once again, contact information before we really get started. We'll talk a little more at length about Anime North in coming weeks. We've set up plenty tonight. As I said, this has been some very unique recordings. Some volunteers and congoers did last night. We had talked with Fred Schodt as our first major guest earlier today, and we had Jesse, our first major guest from another podcast. So,
yes, Jesse Betteridge, not to be confused with Chris Beveridge from the Fan.
Way to go!
I'm guessing that's happened from time to time. Huh?
You did listen to the episode
happened last night.
Wait,
that is the first time anyone has made that mistake, for the record.
And now you're there for the rest of your life, right?
Jesse made it apparent earlier in the episode that he listened to last night's episode.
Last night's or the last week's episode?
Last week's episode. Did you make that mistake again?
No. It was
so
just,
now
no,
you know the truth
time.
that Mike never edits for content, only for time.
Although we had much of it. Anyway, so once again, our Twitter feed is at Anime Roundtable. If you want to email us, because nobody really does, animeroundtable@gmail.com. And of course, we're online, so you can see the entire archive of the show on our blog, animeroundtable.com. Of course, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Hopefully, we'll try a few other catchers. I thank you to Jesse Betteridge. Zannen.ca is the website.
Correct.
Twitter feed, same thing?
Twitter feed, well, there is a at Zannen Canada Twitter. I prefer it if people follow my personal Twitter at JBetteridge, but you can follow both. That'd be great.
My own, for reference, my own personal Twitter is Okina Blue. Yeah. So, and I put up non-anime stuff on that, including the pictures of the Japanese women's curling team.
Yeah, and I have an email as well, zannencanada@gmail.com. I also very rarely get email in it. We can email each other.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I know Surat and Clarissa and Gerald and the AWO gang there can make an entire episode of just emails.
Well, that's them.
That's them.
So, yeah.
I'm jealous in many ways in that sense. One thing I should joked with Norm is maybe next year also I'll try to learn how to try doing a panel and try and organize it through him. I'm jealous of what you did. I am envious of your work. That was impressive. I really enjoyed that. So
good.
I have to say, I honestly have to say that I really enjoyed.
No, give it a shot. You should.
Yeah.
You can totally. I'm sure there are many things you could do.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as funny. And if enough people listen to the show, guys can take guess what I'd be surmising and thinking for an idea. But we'll leave that for another time. I have an entire year to think about that. So I guess that's sort of the topic for the going once around the table for final insults, as we like to call them. One thing you are looking forward to in the future, I'm looking forward to. I already said it. I'm looking forward to seeing what other things we can do under this new banner and some of the things we found out. Hopefully, other guests get to do the show, and maybe something, maybe a panel to the levels of what Jesse and Mike Toole do for myself. Kevin, you said you wanted to mention a little bit more about the upcoming Japanese Film Festival going on at the JCCC.
So just because I always feel like we should talk about upcoming events a little more often, so it felt...
which is a gag in this show, because we always talk about them after they've happened.
Yeah. So the Toronto Japanese Film Festival happens every year in June. It happens throughout the entire month. So they do that at the JCCC, the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center, and that's North York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just off the DVP, off the east north. Yeah.
Yeah. So they play they have like 25 or 30 films that they're screening this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they always screen a couple of anime movies.
As Norm alluded to.
Yes, they always do. They usually do sponsor a couple of those films. So this year's anime movie is it was what Norm alluded to. That one is by it's by one of those former Ghibli directors. So not only did he do Mary and the Witch's Flower, he also did Arrietty. So that one's like I think it's one of those different story movies where we have like 5 or 6 different little short films. They're just going to combine it all into one.
It was released. It had a Fathom Events release in the U.S. earlier this year, but and it Van City Theatre in Vancouver screened it during a festival. I missed it, unfortunately, and I don't know if it's screened anywhere else in Canada.
I think we'll get it at least physical, because I think it's a G Kids release from what I understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll get it physical, but but the theatrical stuff has been very spotty. Over the past couple of years,
and all they have to deal is with one distributor, Mr. Cineplex.
Yeah,
which is kind of a funny story when we think about it, because there's Famous Players in Cineplex, and Famous Players was bigger than Cineplex, but they're the ones that came out. It's funny when you think back in the day.
Weird, boy. But at Landmark Theaters, they had some screenings of Broly and for the second Fate Stay Night movie.
Is there a Landmark in the GTA?
There's a couple, but they're further north.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the other theaters are few and far between. I feel we're mostly Cineplex now.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of mansions.
Thanks.
For cheap, so.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I will say this much about the film festival. Is there anything else you want to add about the film festival?
They're also going to do a rerun of Oko's Inn and Penguin Highway, but those will be in August.
Okay.
Looking forward to 2 films in particular, though. One is The Masquerade Hotel. So it's one of those movies where like a murder happens in a hotel and everyone's trying to figure out who the killer is. That's going to be the opening reception movie, and then their 18 plus movie screening is it's Callboy. So it actually goes in depth about the life of this person who decides to become a male escort. And the 18 plus movies are always an interesting go around.
Okay. We'll put up the link for the Japanese Japanese Film Festival. As I said, as mentioned, it takes place at the JCCC. Which is an interesting building. And when the now former Japanese emperor visited Canada almost a decade ago, he actually visited there. So one of the things I remember on one of my visits, they had a loop. There was a video screen. There was a small screen, and it was constantly looping pictures from the emperor's visit, from Akihito's visit. On the topic of, since we talked about the emperor earlier with Fred,
and I think back to those other things where I think it was the previous J8 meeting, and that was in Hokkaido, and he talked about the previous emperor, not Akihito, but about coming to Japan. Coming to Canada after the war and stuff like that, and going on that whistle-stop train tour, and that was an interesting experience.
We have to be careful about, because we don't want to hint too much about the interview itself until it's up.
No.
One other thing I will say though is, since in the past we also mentioned the Vancouver Asahi in a past episode. The festival a couple years ago did show the movie as well. So and I know, from what I understand, it was sold out too. So. It's a good festival if you want to see it. Sometimes a lot of the stars and the directors involved with these films show up for these So
they will have some of those people there.
yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to do some different type of stargazing, check that set. It'll be worth checking out. Check the link there.
$12 a movie.
Yeah, not bad. James, one thought, and we have to be fast. Really, we have to be fast.
No, I don't think there's any thoughts. It's
well,
like
I guess-
another fun day at Anime North, and there's always something new. Every time you find something else. I was at the gaming section with Victor Lucas, incredible time, and went to check out the TCC in the rain, and that was interesting in its own right.
Yeah, I guess.
And then, as we said, remember to listen to the interview with Fred Schodt if you haven't already, because it was, I
when we
think,
put it up.
very good.
As of
I
this
think
moment-
Mike was at the top of his game.
As of this moment, it's not up, but we will have it up later.
Probably by the
in
time
the
we
week.
put this up. So.
Yeah, well, maybe a couple days after we put this episode up. Anyway, from a personal I guess from my own standpoint, we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about Anime North, and I guess we'll now be episode 12, or is it 13? I've lost count. But from my standpoint, once again, we're pretty much done. So a personal thank you one more time to the gang here at Anime North, to specifically Eileen and Norm McEvoy. For really helping us out, and facilitating a lot of new things for us this year. So thanks for them. And as I said last year, and I'll say it one more time, we will be back without fail. And with that in mind, that's it for this episode. We'll see you back at the 6 Point Studio sometime in June. And we'll talk to you then. Good night from Toronto. This has been the Anime Roundtable.